Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, April 6th, 8 p.m. It is the new time. We're starting at 8 p.m. now for this week in A.B.A.T.E. So welcome to it. My name is Josh Witkowski. I am your state legislative coordinator. And immediately, right off the bat, I see our first comment regarding trailer plates. Of course, that's what we're going to lead with. But before we talk about trailer plates, I want to acknowledge the video that we led with here at the beginning of the broadcast. Some of you may have been wondering, what the heck was that? Well, that is The Mouse and the Motorcycle. It was a 1987 stop-motion film done from a book. And for motorcycle hooligans of a particular age, namely myself being in 40 and several around my age group, The Mouse and the Motorcycle was probably one of our first introductions, positive introductions to the world of motorcycling. It was a book written by Beverly Cleary, who passed away, unfortunately, 2 weeks ago. And I hadn't done my job in acknowledging that. That was a big part for people around my particular age group. If you saw earlier this week, Chris Hansen posted up where the Elburn newspaper had a little kids cartoon that didn't represent motorcyclists positively. Whereas Beverly Cleary wrote a series of books about this little mouse and this motorcycle that did represent us very positively. And I highly recommend checking it out. Read it to your kids, your grandkids, great-grandkids if you've got it. It's a great book for anybody interested in motorcycles. So, with that said, leading right off, trailer plates. Yes, I know it's the month of April. Yes, I know that the TA plates are due this month. Here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. Don't pay. I know that seems counterintuitive. Hold off. One, they're not due until the emergency is lifted. The emergency still hasn't been lifted. So you've still got grace period to finish paying these things and the ridiculous 500% ransom that the state is asking for. But two, it shows a little bit of civil disobedience here. You're basically saying, you know what, we're not going to pay a 500% ransom on a trailer that's less than 3,000 pounds, or in the case of the trailer behind a motorcycle, a few hundred pounds. There are some things being worked on behind the scenes. We're trying to talk to organized labor, trying to talk to some people and show them that this isn't a viable revenue stream, because there are ways to get around having to pay that $118. And bluntly, if they're not willing to work with us, if they're not willing to hear the voice of the people that have been complaining loudly about this for over a year now, we're prepared to start promoting how to avoid paying this fee and deny that revenue. But we're going to hold off for now. We're going to try to have positive negotiations together. But if negotiations falter, then yeah, we're going to start telling you guys how to start avoiding that $118 fee, that $100 increase. But that's where we're at with regards to trailer plates. In case you didn't know, legislature has been in recess for the last 10 days, which means nothing has moved. So we're just kind of behind the scenes stuff this week. So, speaking of behind-the-scenes stuff and kind of how we do things, it is important that you make your voice heard. People have been talking very loudly about the trailer plate issue. You've been calling your representatives. I hear about it from the representatives. But that isn't just the only way that things get your voice heard. Sorry, I've got several messages coming in. The other ways that we get our voice heard out there. First of all, coming up is Legislative Day. It is 1 week from tomorrow. It is April 14th, right here in Springfield. If you want to make your voice heard, this is a way to make your voice heard. You show up, you talk to the legislators. No, we will not be able to get into the State House. However, we will be at the State House all day. We have the ballroom reserved. We're going to have the reception. This was the direction of the board of directors, so it is what we're going to do. Once we have that reception, that's your opportunity to talk to legislators. I've already been told by several legislators they plan on attending. They're legislators that represent all around the state. Therefore, I need members from all around the state to be here to talk with legislators. And when we talk with them, let's make sure that we're using the right voice. It's part about making our voice heard. We want to make our voice heard in government, but you also have to watch the voice that we use with them. You have to understand, these days politics is really angry, and legislators get yelled at constantly. So doesn't their staff. And the best version of this I'm going to tell you is this. We all know my fellow curmudgeon in arms, Chris Hansen. You see him on here every week with me. He's off this week because he's got a conflict on the first Tuesday. It's just what we do. But we've heard him. We know what Chris sounds like. Well, see, Chris also works for Heritage Harley Davidson as a parts person. I was there visiting him earlier today, hence the sunburn. And I got to hear Chris's customer service voice. And those of you that work retail, work restaurants, have done anything in the service industry, you know what I'm talking about with regards to the customer service voice. Let's just say I'm still not over it. I wasn't ready for that. That was the most polite and professional I have ever heard Chris. I was very impressed with it. But that's the kind of voice that we need to use when we talk with our legislators. The same way that Chris talks to his customers is the same way that we talk to our legislators. Other things about getting your voice heard. Like I said, Legislative Day is going to be April 14th, but right at the end of the month, Chris checks in to say it's a lie. Good to see you're watching, buddy. Anyway, the other thing to hear your voice, on May 2nd will be the Freedom Rally down here in Springfield. We are a go. We will be there in the morning at the A.B.A.T.E building. We'll be in the south part of the lot, but you're going to come into the A.B.A.T.E building, 2300 South Dirksen Parkway. 2 years ago when we did this, we had 700 motorcycles. I was blown away by the support. But of course, I'm a little greedy and a little pushy and impatient at times, and I want to top that. I would love to see 1,000 motorcycles this year. So hopefully you will help make that happen. Promote it heavy. But all of this is making your voice heard down there at the Capitol building, and it is something that we have to do. And speaking of making our voices heard, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guest for this evening because she is 1 hour ahead of us. So here she is at 9:10 at night out there in Washington, D.C., just waiting to talk to all of us. I'm going to bring on Tiffany Cipoletti with the American Motorcyclist Association. Tiffany, how are we doing this evening?
I'm doing good. I hope everyone else is finally getting spring. I've been slow start getting my bike out, but I did get her out today. Josh asked me to do this, and I was like, all right, I can commit to, getting back in.
And that's commitment. I mean, she gave up a little bit of riding. She cut her ride short just to be here to talk to us. For those of you that aren't familiar with Tiffany, her title says Government Relations, American Motorcyclist Association, but she was formerly with the Motorcycle Riders Foundation out there in D.C. And she came and spoke at our Freedom Rally 3 years ago, I believe it was, 2018, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so that was 2018. So, Tiffany's familiar with that same rally that I talk about getting our voice out at, but let's talk about what is the American Motorcyclist Association? What are you guys doing?
We've been staying busy. So formerly when I was with the MRF, I focused more on federal things, but now that I'm with the AMA, I'm focused on highway state issues. So it's been kind of a learning curve for me. My professional life with the MRF, I did stuff federally, but I also had experience as a private citizen, just like A.B.A.T.E members, working with the Virginia Coalition of Motorcyclists on issues in Virginia. So it's a little bit of copy and paste, but times I have 42 states. So I have a coworker that covers 8 states in the West. So January was drinking from a fire hose, I think would be the best way to describe it. Just the sheer volume of legislation just coming in for my 42 states. I thought I was prepared, and it was sort of a blood sport. And within that first week of the sessions kicking off, I got involved. A legislator from the state of Montana reached out to me. They were running a lane filtering bill in Montana, so I spent some time working with them, testifying on their behalf, sending support letters, and I'm sure some of the news has gotten around. Montana did pass lane filtering legislation. It's been signed by the governor, and it will go in effect October 1 later this year. So that was kind of a really excellent way to come into the AMA, kind of a really fast and quick victory on a piece of state legislation.
So literally your first week out and you get Montana on board with lane filtering. That's
so
amazing.
Apparently that legislator had run that similar legislation a few years ago. Didn't have much traction, but he was just really confident. He wanted to go again. By the time we got involved in the process, he already had the legislation drafted and introduced. I had some questions. I wasn't sure how it was going to go because it was rather simple. And if anyone would ever want to see exactly what they have passed in their state, it's not complicated like California, and it's has less restrictions than what they do in Utah. So it is, their law is limited on speed. You can only go about, if traffic is stopped or going 10 miles an hour, you're allowed to filter through, but you're only allowed to go 10 miles per hour faster than traffic, which so in essence is about a 20 mile per hour cap. So it looks nothing like California. And Utah has something similar with a speed restriction, but in Utah, they even have defined what roads you're allowed to do it on. They did not do that in Montana. So now we have 3 states with some version of allowing motorcycles to filter between traffic, though not uniformed.
Okay, but we're getting there. And this is something that the AMA does work on, is lane usage issues nationwide, right?
That is an issue we work on. So the AMA Board of Directors has crafted some position statements on some issues, lane filtering being one of them. You can easily check those out on our website, AmericanMotorcyclist.com, underneath like the legislative section. And that's sort of like my guide. Like I know, okay, here we are on the record. This is something that was important enough to write a board position. So that's sort of like when I'm looking at legislation, if it falls in one of those categories, we have a position statement on autonomous vehicles. We have a position statement on motorcycle profiling. I know to me those are higher priority issues. Not to say just because we don't have a position written on an issue that we don't engage on them, but if a member reaches out or a state organization reaches out, they have an issue that they would like some support on, I'm ready, eager, and willing to jump in. And during this session, I've actually worked with Josh and some of the legislation that A.B.A.T.E Illinois has supported and offered, even just going on the record in support, something written, in support on the record. And I know my coworker, Pete Stockus, who actually, oddly enough, is from Illinois. He handles off-highway issues, and I know he was working with Josh and Hunter John on some of the off-road issues that A.B.A.T.E was tracking this session too.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that's very important, and it's one of the reasons why I asked Tiffany to be on, is that this year, A.B.A.T.E of Illinois and AMA have really been working together on a lot of different things. Tiffany wrote a wonderful letter with regards to, I believe it was profiling, wasn't it? It was 2617. Yeah. She wrote a wonderful letter with regards to profiling, citing many national aspects of the issue and how it relates locally. That bill did end up coming out of committee. I don't expect it to go much further, but it did make it out of committee. But the AMA also signed on as support for House Bill 656, which was the issue with the passengers being able to touch the footrest. So they've been able to help with that. Pete Stockus, your counterpart on off-road, has been working with me and Polaris on the issue of oversized off-highway vehicles, and he's been giving me some good statistics and points from other states that I've been able to use here to get Polaris to kind of back off and work with us a little bit better. So that's been very valuable. So we're one of your 42 states, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 42 states, that's nothing, right? I mean, we've only got, 6,500 bills here. It can't be that bad in the other states, is it?
I can tell you probably the first 6 weeks of the month, there was never a day that I didn't have at least 200 pieces of legislation sitting in my queue waiting for me to read, decide if it's important enough to classify. And you can see the legislation that I've been tagging and tracking, same thing on our website, American Motorcyclist. You'll see I typically just mark mine as monitor, and then I do change them around if I am putting something, going on the record in support or opposition. But the vast majority of my states are done. That was the kind of the hardest learning curve for me. Is it is not a one size fits all across the country. Some states have 2-year sessions, some have one. Some of the states have only a 60-day session, so I try to prioritize, make that the priority. The states that have really short sessions to kind of get through theirs and see what there is, and any big landmines, anything big. But a few states back in. So yeah, profiling. I'm willing to engage. I know there are. Utah almost had a resolution done, and they ran out of time on the very last day. They couldn't get it back to their other chamber because they made an amendment to it. But there's, half a dozen states working on profiling at home. There's 2 states that are working on, I don't know if many people are aware, but, quote unquote, the dead red issue. I'm sure you've all experienced it. You've pulled up to a red light and you can't get the signal to detect your motorcycle. And I think that's a really important issue that states continue to address. But also, I think when you think of the bigger picture of issues that we talk about a lot, and I know Josh is extremely interested with autonomous vehicles, that infrastructure is a great example for motorcyclists to point to when you're talking about, autonomous vehicles in the future, totally connected, vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to infrastructure. We can already point to an example and say, hey, there's already this widely used piece of infrastructure that is deployed all across this country that's not calibrated in most places to detect your motorcycle when you pull up. So I think that's, even if you have a very basic understanding about how this could affect you beyond, we are concerned whether or not cars can, detect and respond to us on the road. That's another example. Just infrastructure has already been deployed in this country that didn't account for motorcycles. So,
And that is a wonderful point. You mentioned the Red Dead. Here in Illinois, we actually have that. You get to sit for 120 seconds, and if the light doesn't turn, you get to proceed through the intersection if it's clear. I almost got to do that yesterday right in front of a cop. That would have been very interesting. I ticked off the 120 and the light hadn't changed yet, and I was like, well, this is going to be a quick pullover, but I waited a little bit longer and the light did eventually change. But you mentioned autonomous vehicles, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. Today, the NTSB put out their top 10 list of what they're voting on or what they'd like to see for the next 2020 and 2021. You want to talk about that a little bit? I know you're familiar with some of it.
I'm familiar with some of it. The one thing that I would like to note, in the past even 10 years, there was a time when the NTSB, which is the National Traffic Safety Board, they come out with what their most wanted list, where they make recommendations to other federal agencies about things they think that need to be addressed. And that covers everything from like aviation, highway safety, marine, and I believe like pipeline, that part of infrastructure. And there was a time when they were calling out what they considered their most wanted, motorcycles were just a whole category. So like gone are the days where we have been totally called out, but there are some things that they're addressing in the highway section that will relate to us, and there will be recommendations in there. But I don't necessarily believe they're going to be much of anything that we haven't heard from the NTSB. It is no secret the NTS believe that all 50 states should have a helmet law. In fact, when they just did their final report on the accident that happened in New Hampshire in 2019, that was one of the recommendations they came out. They called out Illinois specifically for being one of 3 states that has no helmet law. And they even called out the states that have, age restricted helmet laws. But not a lot of new things. The NTSB also made a recommendation a few years ago that they believe all motorcycles should have anti-lock brakes. And they cited that, and even in that motorcycle crash report, they believe that maybe the outcome would have been a little different had they had that. I know we might make a mention. There's a whole section on alcohol and drug impaired driving. It's no secret when you look at motorcycle statistics, it's sort of a black eye that's represented in motorcycle fatalities. And I believe we'll also have some of their focus on the collision avoidance and connected vehicle technology on all vehicles. I'm kind of interested to see how far that one would go. as you know, that's not totally going to be a simple issue that can be solved on motorcycles the way it can with other motor vehicles on the road. And also, I think the interesting thing, that kind of discussion that I heard they were having when they were talking about specifically vulnerable road users and what they're considering their safe system approach is, I felt like I heard a tone where they were pivoting from the traditional safer crashes, how to make crashing safer, to let's really talk about accident avoidance.
Yeah.
And we're going to end up in that category. I know we don't like it, but federally, the NTSB and NHTSA, when they say vulnerable road users, motorcyclists are included in that federal definition. But I thought that was probably the most maybe positive new thing, is that it's not typical that typically they say, oh, if we can make crashing safer, that will, save lives. I'm going to argue if we can just not have the accident at all, motorcyclists won't be injured on the road. So,
Alrighty. All right. So I'm being asked a couple different things here. One is, do you have any interest in coming to Illinois to speak again?
oh my goodness, I was actually just telling the story about how I rode to the awareness rally. Yeah, it was 2018, and that was probably the biggest, longest trip I've taken by myself. And I want the people to know I appreciate everyone who felt pity on me for riding, my Sportster from DC and back in a weekend so I could join you and speak. I still own it. I was actually telling the story to someone else because I honestly came back from that and I was like looking at new bikes because that was a lesson. I was losing parts. And so, yes, I would be interested, and I would totally bring my raggedy crap Sportster, and I'll probably lose parts again somewhere on 70 crossing the country.
Hey, I was right behind you all the way from Indianapolis back to here, and if anything fell off, I'd just scoop it up for you. We were good to go. But yes, for those that don't know, Tiffany rode her Sportster all the way from DC to Springfield to come speak at that rally, and then she went back to DC, and it was short order. I mean, it was like a 3 or 4 day deal here. It was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that was pretty impressive. Tiffany, if people are interested in seeing what the AMA is out there doing, how do they find you guys out there on the web? What should they be watching for?
So you can find us on, if you're not a member, or you're just curious about what we're tracking, if you can go right on our website, AmericanMotorcyclist.com, and you can find sort of right down there in the first tab, it says rights, and you can get into our action center. You can kind of see if we have any sort of call to actions out, build tracking. So far, I mean, I have it. If people do want us to put out call to actions, I know you in Illinois, you have your own system, but I'm willing to do that on any issue that we're supporting. And the build tracking, you can kind of go see what I've bumbled around by category, states. You can check out your state specifically, or you can, by issue. And then there's a subscribe link if you want to get any of, our emails that we're putting out through the government relations department. Monthly, we put out like a news and notes that's going to cover some national stuff, state stuff, international industry stuff. And again, any sort of call to actions. So federally, it's been a little slow to the jump, kind of getting things going. To date, so far, during the last Congress, we worked on the Motorcyclist Advisory Council Reauthorization Act, and that was a standalone piece of legislation that was attached to the highway bill that passed the House and not the Senate. The feeling is that will happen again. That's just going to reauthorize the Federal Motorcyclist Advisory Council, but it's actually going to change it a little bit. So it's going to, instead of it being a 2-year authorization, it's going to be a 6-year authorization, which would give that the council an opportunity to make a couple sets of recommendation back to federal highways, but it would also go to NHTSA, and there would be a component that they would have to actually I want to say answer or respond and then give that answer back to Congress. So it would have a little more teeth than it has in the past about what is going to happen with those recommendations. But Capitol Hill, the anticipation is they all believe that by May they'll be having pretty open committees. Everyone's pretty optimistic that the highway authorization, which is, the transportation law of the land for about 5 years, it was supposed to be renewed last year. They chose to pass a continuing resolution to fund for another year. But there are some good things that came out of the House bill for motorcycling, and they got done through the amendment process, which not many. I think there was over 300 amendments that were offered, and I want to say, I don't even know, a dozen of them were accepted, and I think 4 of them were motorcycle specific things. So we're still feeling pretty good talking with the people on that committee that helped champion some of those things, that those things will be back.
Very, very good. Well, we're glad to hear about it. Thank you for keeping an eye on things out there in DC and working together with us. For those that are interested, I posted the link to AmericanMotorcyclist.com down there in the comments. You can go there. Just like Tiffany said, look up subscriptions, look up membership, all that fun stuff. Tiffany, is there any last words that you got for our people?
Oh gosh, like I'm supposed to have something really clever to share. Reach out to me. I'm here. I'm in Washington. I don't know all the answers, but I love getting in the weeds, learning as much as I can, helping in any way I can. Josh, knows how to get a hold of me. I guess you could probably even type even my email address if anyone's even curious on any issues, or if, like I said, I don't have the answers. I only focus on highway. If you also really care about off highway issues, I can connect you directly with my coworker, Pete. Yeah, so I'm around.
Alrighty. Tiffany, thank you very much for coming on this evening. I hope you have yourself a wonderful evening, and try to get some sleep if you can.
All right.
All right, see you later. Transitioning from Washington, D.C. to local events going on around the state, since, this is the week that Chris isn't with us. For those that aren't familiar, first week of the month, the show is on Tuesday nights. And there we go. We're running with our local events. Sorry, I was reading the comments there. So starting off with Open Roads, they are doing their annual train run. Starts at the Aurora train station down at 233 North Broadway in Aurora. And they will be there Saturday, April 10th, 2021. 9:45 a.m. sign in, 10:20 a.m. departure. I have heard many stories from this train run, and I'm kind of sad that I'm going to miss it. One of these years I will be on that train run. If trains don't interest you, or if you're a little bit hungry, the very next day, April 11th, there is the Kishwaukee Valley April Breakfast Run. It will be at Family Affair Restaurant in Galena. The information's here on the screen of who to text, who to get a hold of. That is on the 11th. But also going on the 11th is the A.B.A.T.E of Illinois Swap Meet at the Expo Garden in Peoria. We had to move the swap meet this year. The swap meet is typically in Springfield at the State Fairgrounds. The current building that we use at the State Fairgrounds is actually a COVID vaccination site right now. So we had to move the swap meet. Mark Wearies has busted his butt incredibly to pull this swap meet off. I encourage everybody to be there this weekend. I unfortunately am teaching this weekend. Otherwise, I would be there myself. It should be a great turnout. It should be a great time. The Peoria community is always so strong with regards to motorcycle stuff. So we look to see a massive showing, and I hope that everybody can get over there and be there for it. There's usually a lot of good vendors. In fact, I saw one vendor was promoting that they're taking up 10 booth spaces and that they're going to have an assortment of leather, handlebars, parts, you name it. They seem to be wanting to bring it. So then we go into next week. Lemoyne Valley is doing a trivia night, $5 per person. You see Einstein there on the flyer. Sign up is at 6 p.m. It's at Slopes Bar in Blandonsville, Illinois. Look it up on Google, Facebook, should be able to find it. We can go from there, but should be a good time. See if you're smarter than the average biker. That same weekend down in southern Illinois, Shoal Creek A.B.A.T.E is doing their Fallen Riders Cookout down at the Vandalia Lake Club. Vandalia, also known as the capital prior to Springfield. Sorry we had to steal that from you. They will have a live band. They have 14 prizes, 300 tickets sold. Grand prize is $5,000 out of that raffle. You can see the information for tickets. There's a cash bar available. $25 at the door for food and drink for this lovely cookout. It should be a good time. I've heard really good things about it. Trying to get down there myself. So then, following that, we have Eastern Illinois Spring Fever Ride, April 17th. They're going to be at the, looks like, Talons in Buford. The information is on there. Sorry, it's the size of the screen. I'm trying to work on that. Next up, beyond that, we have Kishwaukee Valley again on April 17th. These guys have an event going on every weekend up there in the Rockford area. They're doing the 20th Annual Memorial Blood Drive in honor of Gonzo. There's a prize drawing, 50-50, 300 reward points. It's at the Rock River Valley Blood Center. Look, we all know we need to donate blood because, let's face it, if you're a trauma patient, you're going to need blood. And sometimes we're those trauma patients. So definitely get yourselves out there to support Kishwaukee Valley A.B.A.T.E in that effort. That same weekend, Sunday, April 18th, join Will County A.B.A.T.E for Axe Factor Throwing. They're going to throw axes. What could be more entertaining than throwing axes while enjoying a few, choice adult drinks here and there? It's $30 per person. Food is included. Tickets must be... Sorry, Taz. I had the breakfast run as Kishwaukee Valley. It is Freeport. My bad. We had it down as KVA. Sorry, there was a little bit of miscommunication there. Going back to the Will County A.B.A.T.E, the axe throwing. It's $30 per person. Food is included. Your tickets must be purchased in advance. Contact Kathy at the number there on your screen. So, moving on. Now, the next event is Kishwaukee Valley. It's the April run, Saturday, April 24th. They're signing up at Neighbors Bar and Grill in Loves Park, Illinois. Only $5. Name the last time you saw a run that was only $5 to get in. KVA just wants the turnout, and I cannot blame them for that. It's a great effort. Great chapter up there in the Rockford area. Like I said, they practically do something every weekend, so definitely get up there and join them again for that one. That same weekend, on April 24th, Liberty A.B.A.T.E down in the Mattoon area. They are doing their poker run, 9 a.m. to 9:45 sign up. Kickstands up at 10 a.m., so it's a breakfast-style poker run, I'm gathering from that. But they're headed to Buford's Pub, going to Triple Nickel, $5 a hand, just like that KVA run. I'm glad to see these cheap runs. These are a good ones, a good thing to have out there. So looking forward to hearing and seeing what the results are from these. Keep going. April 25th, Chicago A.B.A.T.E is doing their awareness run. This is the weekend prior to the Freedom Rally. They do their run every year, the weekend prior to the Freedom Rally here in Springfield. They start at the LAMA, Latin American Motorcyclist Association Clubhouse. They're 3519 Fullerton. It is a beautiful facility. I was up there earlier in March on St. Patrick's Day to visit with Chicago A.B.A.T.E. It's a great little clubhouse, good location, easy to get to. Where they're headed, that's a secret, because let's face it, Chicago's still a little bit more locked down than the rest of the state. Can't blame them there. But it's a good time. Pat Jones says it's going to be a great, great time. Says he may even buy a drink for the first couple people that show up. That's a good thing on Pat there. And then the following weekend is Freedom Rally weekend, and we're going to kick it off with Freedom Fest. Freedom Fest is an effort between Lincoln Land A.B.A.T.E, which is my home chapter here in Springfield, and Midstate A.B.A.T.E, which is in Taylorville, Illinois, to try to do a weekend-long event to increase attendance for the Freedom Rally that is on Sunday, May 2nd. This is our attempt at that. We're going to be at the Christian County Fairgrounds. $10 gets you in for all 3 days. Camper hookups are $20 a night. Tent camping is free. We've got a DJ on Friday night. We've got bags tournament going on Friday night. Saturday, we're doing a daytime fun run with food. We're doing Run What You Brung, open dirt drag racing. So this means literally whatever you came in on, we're going to put it out there on the dirt track for short shot dirt drags across the track there. It's a good time there. And then in the evening, we just signed the band Bustin' Loose, who's well known in the area for the last 20 years or so. They're going to be there Saturday night. I already know that several people are coming down from the Chicago area for it. Some people are coming up from Southern Illinois. It's going to be a good time. It's a first-time event that we're trying to do. We're going to try to make it work and hopefully increase attendance for the Freedom Rally. Freedom Rally is going to be May 2nd. Sunday, May 2nd. Always the first Sunday in May. A.B.A.T.E parking lot, 2300 South Dirksen Parkway. Lineup will start at 8 a.m. Kickstands are up at 1. We will do a procession to the Capitol. All vehicles, all clubs, all organizations welcome. We don't care what you ride. We just care that you believe in the same things that we do. And that is the same thing for the Freedom Fest that's going on that same weekend as well. We don't care what you've got going on. We want you there. We support all motorcyclists and their rights. So that's what we have going on locally in the immediate future. But let's talk about a little bit further out. First of all, to address Pat's comment, no, Chris Hansen is not sleeping. Chris has a very important meeting this time of the month. He didn't get kicked off the program either, no matter what he protests down there in the comments. Anyway, yes, Pat, you can ride a Grum. In fact, I'd pay good money to see that. Moving on, the Horizon. Like I said, legislature's been off the last 10 days. I've been doing what I can to get caught up, plus handle getting legislative day together, which again, April 14th down here in Springfield, State House Inn. It's a Wednesday. Come down at least for the reception, but we're having good response to the Zoom meetings that we're going to do during the day. I'm going to address that towards the end. What do we have coming down the pike? The future of what we're looking at. There's some interesting bills that have happened this year, and some things that we're going to have to weigh in on. Electric motorcycles have suddenly become a thing. There's a possibility of a bill that will actually offer a rebate for certain people that purchase electric motorcycles. We've got electric motorcycle registration. We've got autonomous vehicle issues going on. We've got all sorts of things happening. But we mentioned earlier, I was talking with Tiffany about NTSB and their list that they released today. In that top 10 list is vehicle communication and collision avoidance systems. They want to see collision avoidance mandated on all vehicles, including motorcycles. And they want to see automated collision avoidance mandated, which means that your motorcycle may start braking for you. This is similar to what some cars are already doing. I know that BMW and Kawasaki are both bringing systems like this online this year and selling them to the public, but this is something that we're going to have to deal with. This is the future. This is what we're dealing with out there on the horizon. We're also starting to see some pushback with regards to testing in Illinois. We've got a bill pending now that would eliminate the testing requirement for 75 years and older. That's something that ABATE's going to have to make a decision on. Is that something that we're in favor of? Are we good with eliminating that mandatory testing requirement that's solely based on age? The testing requirement based on if you have an accident or if you have too many moving violations still stands. This just gets rid of the age issue at 75. It's something that I've heard about, but it's something that we need to start looking at. And then another thing that we need to start looking at with regards to the horizon, the future, is there are going to be some safety things coming up. And I'm getting ready to talk about that under Rant and Roll. And we as an organization are going to have to make a decision as to where we stand with regards to certain safety things, such as penalties if somebody is operating a motorcycle unlicensed, such as penalties if somebody is drunk, distracted driving, digital issues. There's another one on the horizon that should be really fun. There was a 15-year-old girl last week stole a Tesla from her grandma, I believe it's grandma or mom, and when the cop pulled her over, she jumped in the back seat and said, nope, the vehicle was driving on its own. We're going to have to address that kind of stuff with legislation coming up. I got asked today about lighting on your helmets. There's companies that make turn signal helmets now and turn signal boots and vests. Right now, Illinois law is gray on that. These are things that we have to address coming up. So that's kind of a look of what we've got going on for the future. But then we need to talk about what we've got going on now. And that is, I'm going to do one of these a week, or Chris is going to cover one of these a week, because we really need to start driving the points home. I mentioned today that the NTSB talked about the 5 of 10, or the 10 things that they view as their top 10, 5 of them involving motorcycles. Give me just one moment here. I got to decline that call. There's something else that was talked about. I was part of a conference today with NHTSA, between NHTSA and the MSF. It was a webinar done by National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's top statistician, who's also a motorcycle rider. And she presented some really interesting decisions, I should say statistics. And what her statistics show is that we as motorcyclists are exceptionally good at killing ourselves. We talk about the issues with people colliding with us, having collisions and crashes. We talk about the vehicles that turn left. We talk about cars that don't see us. Talk about semis that may turn in front of us. But there's a bigger cause of death, unfortunately, that is out there, and that is bad decision making. There's no easy way to put it. Last night here in Springfield, we had somebody die. The initial reports are that it was a high rate of speed. This makes 5 or 6 fatalities here in Illinois already to begin the season. Last year, we had a young man die, and it was by a bad decision. He made a bad decision. He didn't judge a curve correctly. But the other bad decision that's being made out there, 28% of motorcycle fatalities are individuals who do not have a M endorsement or a motorcycle endorsement on their license. In Illinois, it's Class M. I don't know what it is for other states. But 28% of fatalities are individuals who haven't either taken the class or haven't passed the written or haven't passed the riding test. And they may have their own reasons for doing that. You know, I hear people brag about the fact about, oh, I've been riding dirty for 5 to 10 years. They've just never been caught. But the point is, making that decision is getting people killed. When you pass along the idea of, yeah, you can ride dirty and not get caught, and somebody who's younger and inexperienced hears that, they think the same thing, and it kills them. The other thing that we're doing that kills ourselves at a prodigious rate is alcohol. You heard Tiffany talk about it. There is a high number of fatalities where alcohol is involved. It's close to 35%, something like that. That's insane. Nobody else sees those kind of numbers, fortunately, I guess I should say. But again, it's a decision. You make the decision to ride while impaired. You make the decision to ride while not having a valid endorsement and going through all that process. You may make the decision to race. You know, there are track days available. These are things that we can always look at, things we can do better at promoting maybe. Events where you can have that kind of fun in a little bit better environment where you don't have to worry about traffic. But these are decisions, and we're killing ourselves with these decisions. The other interesting statistic that was pointed out is that when you take it on a vehicle per miles traveled statistic, a motorcyclist is 27% more likely to be in a fatal accident than what the other classifications of vehicles are. Now, that can be due to other vehicles interacting with us, but unfortunately a lot of it is single vehicle accidents, and that's because of decisions that are being made. And I don't mean to preach here. I just want to bring it home to us. This is important. We're killing ourselves at a ridiculous clip. I mentioned the guy that died last night here in Springfield. A little memorial ride was held for him amongst the sport bike riders and younger riders here in town. This is the 3rd, 4th, heck, may even be the 5th now at this point in time in the last couple of years. This tight-knit group is getting really good at doing these funeral runs, and I'm getting a little sick of seeing it. So that was the reason why I wanted to bring it up tonight, is when I heard those statistics mixed with the number of, and some of them have been my friends, that we've lost due to basically death by decision. And it's something that we need to be aware of. Now, with that said, I did see a couple questions out there, so let's talk about some little bit of wrap-up and questions. Again, Pat, Chris is not sleeping. He just had his little meeting this fine evening. I saw earlier, Edna, you asked about whether or not you have to wear masks. Yes, April 14th here in Springfield, Legislative Day. If you are inside of the ballroom, Yes, we have an indoor mask mandate. On top of that, you will be on camera with our legislators. So it doesn't look good if we're not following social distancing and masks. So, yes, it is going to be required. Now, for the reception in the evening, we have an outdoor tent. So you'll be able to come in, grab food, grab drink, and go to the outdoor tent if you don't feel like wearing a mask. We also have plenty of opportunity to take break from the masks. So yes, it will be there, but that's just how we're going to have to work with it. Bear with it, folks. You know, vaccines are out there. We're doing what we can. Let's see, what else was there? I think we addressed whether or not Tiffany will be able to speak in Illinois. She's more than willing to come back. We can work with that. Chicago ABATE was promoting, they've got their meeting on the third Wednesday. Any word on profiling? Profiling, House Bill 2617 made it out of committee, but that is about as far as it's expected to go right now. We're going to sit down and talk with stakeholders over the summer, hopefully tweak that legislation for the beginning of next year, and hopefully finally get it pushed through. There were some technical issues with the way the wording is being done. It's small stuff, but bigger stuff in the terms of how budgets and all that operate. So we're trying to make it to where it won't affect particular groups in particular ways. I can't really go into too much detail until after we get it done. Just trust that we're working on it. The other issue on profiling, the issue up in the Rockford area with the gaming board, we're not letting this go. I'm hoping to get that letter written today or tonight, maybe hopefully tomorrow night, and get it out there to the gaming board this week. I'm also going to ask to address the gaming board directly to clarify the definition of association. For those that aren't familiar, gaming agents are essentially threatening small businesses with revocation of their licensing because they're allowing motorcycle clubs to hang out there. I can't begin to express how disgusted I am. You've heard me go off about it. You've heard Chris go off about it. We are working on that issue more particularly than we are House Bill 2617 at the moment. 2617 will come down later this year. We do plan on trying to address the gaming board directly. We plan on sending the letter, and we plan on doing a few other things legislatively that I don't want to talk about publicly because, as I've been reminded by certain members of the law enforcement community, hey, they do watch our videos, and I don't want to give away our surprise for the gaming board just yet. But it'll be fun, I promise that. With all of that said, Taz, thank you for the correction again. David, took the bike safety course at 18, saved my life and others too, made me a better driver of everything. You know what, David? I will speak to that as well. For those of you that don't know, I'm a motorcycle safety instructor with those classes. I'm an instructor because I firmly believe the class saved my life. I shattered my leg. I did 3 months in a wheelchair, had to relearn how to walk. But I came away surviving because of the decisions that I made moments before the impact, and it was skills that were taught to me in that class. So yeah, I'm a firm believer in the classes. Make sure you go out there and take them. You can go to startseeingmotorcycles.org to sign up for them. They're working on increasing class capacity. We will see what we can do. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It has been This Week in A.B.A.T.E. Like I said, new time, 8 p.m. We will be back next week, Wednesday, on the 14th. It's legislative day. We're still going to try to do a little something at 8 p.m. It will be a short show, but it will be Chris and I. He doesn't know it yet. He may have found out just now, but we'll have a little bit of fun with it, I promise. Till then, we will see you next week.